Remember when the Flintstones was just another cartoon you happened to catch in reruns after school? For many people, that's all it ever seemed to be. A fun animated series about a prehistoric family living among dinosaurs, stone houses, and endless rock jokes. But the real story behind the show is far more surprising. The Flintstones was never created as a children's cartoon. When it premiered on ABC in 1960, it was developed as a primetime sitcom for adults. Instead of focusing only on slapstick comedy, it explored everyday life through a Stone Age lens. Viewers watched Fred worry about work, argue with his boss, struggle with bills, and navigate married life with Wilma. Barney and Betty Rubble faced many of the same challenges, making the show feel like a traditional family sitcom rather than a cartoon. Add in cigarette commercials and jokes aimed at grown-up audiences, and it's easy to see that the Flintstones wasn't originally designed for Saturday morning television. At the heart of the series were Fred and Wilma Flintstone, their best friends Barney and Betty Rubble, and later their children, Pebbles and Bam Bam. Together they lived in Bedrock, a suburban town where dinosaurs replaced machines and everyday technology was powered by prehistoric creatures. From dinosaur vacuum cleaners to bird-operated record players, everything about Bedrock transformed ordinary suburban life into something unforgettable. That clever combination of modern living and prehistoric imagination helped make the Flintstones unlike anything television audiences had ever seen. Across 6 seasons and 166 episodes, the show became one of television's biggest success stories. Yet behind its colorful animation was a fascinating history filled with legal threats, creative gambles, incredible comebacks, and surprising behind-the-scenes moments that many fans have never heard. Today, we're counting down 15 strange and wonderful facts about television's original modern Stone Age family, the stories you probably never saw in syndication and definitely didn't learn from those Fruity Pebbles commercials. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with every classic TV fan who still proudly shouts, Yabba Dabba Doo. And stay until the very end, because the true reason the Flintstones was created might be the most unexpected story in cartoon history. We'll begin with one of the biggest television moments of the 1960s, the birth of Pebbles Flintstone. Today it may sound unusual, but in 1963 America became completely captivated by the arrival of an animated baby. Instead of quietly introducing a new family member, Hanna-Barbera turned Wilma's pregnancy into a nationwide event. Week after week, viewers followed the story, eagerly waiting to discover when the Flintstones' first child would finally arrive. That unforgettable moment came during the Season 3 episode The Blessed Event, which aired in February 1963. Long before the episode reached television screens, Hanna-Barbera launched a massive promotional campaign unlike anything animation had attempted before. Fans across America were invited to participate in a Name the Baby contest by predicting the baby's name, gender, and birth weight. It was an extraordinary idea for an animated television series, and audiences embraced it immediately. Thousands of entries poured in from every corner of the country. The winning suggestion was Pebbles, submitted by an anonymous butcher from Florida. His prize was impressive, a trip around the world and $2,000 in spending money. For simply mailing a postcard, he walked away with a reward that many people could only dream about. More importantly, the campaign proved just how much audiences loved these characters. Millions tuned in to watch the Blessed Event, making it one of the highest-rated episodes of its era. Newspapers covered the story, families discussed it the next morning, and fan mail flooded Hanna-Barbera's offices. Viewers weren't simply enjoying dinosaur jokes anymore. They genuinely cared about Fred, Wilma, Barney, and Betty as if they were real neighbors. Even today, the episode still captures that excitement. Although modern reruns no longer include the original contest promotions, the suspense remains. Every scene builds toward the emotional reveal of Pebbles' birth, showing just how invested audiences had become in Bedrock's favorite family. That single episode transformed the Flintstones from a successful cartoon into a true cultural phenomenon. But just as the series was beginning its remarkable journey, it almost faced a disaster that could have ended everything before it truly began. Just as the Flintstones was beginning to capture the hearts of millions of viewers, It faced a legal threat that could have changed television history forever. The man behind that threat wasn't another television producer or studio executive. It was comedy legend Jackie Gleason. When Gleason watched The Flintstones, he immediately noticed something familiar. Fred Flintstone reminded him of Ralph Cramden, the loud but lovable bus driver from The Honeymooners. Barney Rubble looked remarkably similar to Ed Norton, Ralph's loyal best friend, while Wilma and Betty closely resembled Alice and Trixie, the patient wives who constantly dealt with their husbands' outrageous schemes. Even Fred's voice carried echoes of The Honeymooners, thanks to voice actor Alan Reed, who had previously worked with Gleason. Gleason's lawyers believed they had an excellent case. They argued that the Flintstones borrowed so heavily from The Honeymooners that Hanna-Barbera could face a major copyright lawsuit. On paper, it seemed like a battle they might actually win. Then someone asked Gleason a question that completely changed his mind. Do you really want history to remember you as the man who killed Fred Flintstone? That simple question reportedly stopped the lawsuit before it ever began. Rather than become the person responsible for ending television's first successful primetime animated sitcom, Jackie Gleason decided to let the matter go. Hanna-Barbera never tried to hide the influence. William Hanna openly admitted that The Honeymooners had inspired much of the Flintstones. He described Gleason's sitcom as one of the funniest shows on television and always viewed the similarities as a tribute rather than an act of copying. Because of that decision, Bedrock survived. Not because of a judge or a courtroom ruling, but because Jackie Gleason chose to protect his legacy instead of pursuing a legal victory. Looking back, it's difficult to imagine television without the Flintstones, but history came surprisingly close to taking that path. The next chapter in the show's story is equally unbelievable and centers on one of the greatest voice actors who ever lived. In January 1961, Mel Blanc, the legendary performer behind Barney Rubble, Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Daffy Duck, and dozens of other classic cartoon characters, was involved in a horrific head-on car accident on Sunset Boulevard. The crash was devastating. Blanc suffered shattered legs, a crushed pelvis, multiple broken bones, and a severe skull fracture that left him in a coma for weeks. Doctors weren't even sure he would survive. For Hanna-Barbera, the news was heartbreaking. Barney Rubble wasn't simply another supporting character. He was Fred's closest friend and one half of the comedy partnership that made so many episodes memorable. If Mel Blanc couldn't return, the show would lose one of its most recognizable voices. At first, nobody knew whether he would ever speak again. Friends, family, and fellow performers feared that one of animation's greatest careers had come to an end. But then something incredible happened. As Blanc slowly regained consciousness, one of the first voices he reportedly used was Bugs Bunny's. That unforgettable moment reassured everyone that the remarkable talent behind countless cartoon legends was still there. While Blanc focused on recovering, Hanna-Barbera temporarily brought in veteran voice actor Daws Butler to perform Barney Rubble. Butler already knew the character well because he had voiced Barney during the original Flagstones pilot before the series officially became the Flintstones. For 5 episodes, he kept the character alive while everyone hoped Blanc would make a full recovery. Eventually, Mel Blanc became well enough to return, but there was one problem. He still couldn't travel to the recording studio. Instead of waiting for him to recover completely, Hanna-Barbera made a remarkable decision. They packed up the recording equipment and built a temporary studio inside Blanc's hospital room. Surrounded by fellow cast members who refused to record without him, Mel Blanc once again became Barney Rubble, delivering his dialogue directly from his hospital bed. Although attentive viewers sometimes notice that Barney's voice sounds slightly deeper after the accident, his humor, warmth, and personality remained exactly the same. His extraordinary comeback became one of the greatest stories in entertainment history and proved that not even a near-fatal accident could silence one of animation's greatest talents. By the time Mel Blanc returned, the Flintstones had already accomplished something no animated series had ever achieved before. By the time Mel Blanc made his inspiring return, the Flintstones had already secured its place in television history. Long before Homer Simpson yelled "Doe" or Peter Griffin stumbled through Quahog, Fred Flintstone was breaking barriers for animated television. When the Flintstones premiered on September 30th, 1960, it became the first original animated television series created specifically for prime time. That achievement completely changed the entertainment industry. Before then, animation was almost exclusively viewed as children's programming, usually airing on Saturday mornings. Adults rarely gathered around the television to watch cartoons. Hanna-Barbera decided to challenge that idea by creating an animated sitcom that reflected real adult life. Fred worried about keeping his demanding boss happy at the quarry. Wilma managed the household and family budget. Barney dealt with work problems of his own, while Betty tried to keep everything running smoothly at home. Their arguments, friendships, financial struggles, and everyday adventures mirrored the lives of millions of American families. The only difference was that everything happened in the Stone Age, where dinosaurs replaced machines and every modern convenience had a prehistoric equivalent. Children loved the colorful animation, talking dinosaurs, and clever Stone Age inventions. Adults, however, recognized something deeper. They saw themselves in the characters. That unique balance allowed the Flintstones to appeal to entire families, making it unlike any animated series that had come before it. The show's original sponsor made its intended audience perfectly clear. During the first 2 seasons, Winston Cigarettes sponsored the series, and Fred and Barney even appeared in television commercials enthusiastically promoting the brand. Seeing cartoon characters advertise cigarettes may seem unbelievable today, but during the early 1960s it reflected the advertising standards of the time. Everything changed after the birth of Pebbles. As younger viewers became increasingly interested in the show, network executives realized that cartoon characters promoting cigarettes no longer fit the image they wanted. Winston was replaced by Welch's grape juice, giving the series a much more family-friendly identity that better matched its growing audience. The show also quietly challenged another television tradition. Fred and Wilma became one of the earliest married couples shown sharing the same bed on American television. While that seems completely ordinary today, it was considered surprisingly bold during the early 1960s and demonstrated how the Flintstones continued pushing television boundaries in subtle ways. Its influence only continued to grow. For nearly 30 years, the Flintstones remained the longest-running primetime animated television series ever produced. That record stood until The Simpsons finally surpassed it in 1997, even paying tribute to Fred and his family through several affectionate references over the years. Without the Flintstones, there likely would have been no The Simpsons, no Family Guy, no King of the Hill, and no modern wave of adult animated sitcoms. Fred Flintstone proved that animation could entertain adults just as successfully as live-action television, opening the door for every animated family that followed. But like many successful television shows, the Flintstones eventually reached a point where its creators began searching for new ways to keep audiences interested. That search produced one of the most controversial characters in the show's history. During the 6th and final season, viewers were introduced to the Great Gazoo, a tiny green alien voiced by Harvey Korman. According to the story, Gazoo came from the distant planet Stox and had been banished to Earth after inventing a dangerous doomsday weapon. Fred and Barney accidentally discovered the strange visitor, and suddenly Bedrock became home to an extraterrestrial with incredible magical abilities. Unlike every other character in the series, Gazoo could teleport objects, create almost anything out of thin air, travel through time, and solve impossible situations with almost no effort. Even stranger, only Fred, Barney, Pebbles, and Bam Bam could actually see him. To everyone else, Fred often appeared to be talking to himself, leaving Wilma convinced that her husband had completely lost his mind. For many longtime fans, this marked the moment when the Flintstones lost part of its original charm. The show's greatest strength had always been its clever way of solving modern problems using prehistoric inventions. Gazoo changed that formula by replacing creative Stone Age humor with magical shortcuts. The character wasn't introduced by accident. During the mid-1960s, fantasy sitcoms such as Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie were becoming enormously popular, and the producers hoped that adding a magical character would boost ratings. Instead, many viewers felt the series had drifted too far from what originally made it special. Gazoo ultimately appeared in only 11 episodes before the original series ended in April 1966. Rather than becoming the show's secret weapon, he became one of television's earliest examples of what critics would later describe as jumping the shark, the moment when a successful series introduces increasingly outrageous ideas in an attempt to stay fresh. Ironically, even though the original series was nearing its end, the biggest chapter in the Flintstones story was still ahead. The show's popularity would continue to grow through reruns, merchandise, movies, and spin-offs, transforming a simple animated sitcom into one of the most recognizable entertainment franchises in television history.